that's a triple play. New episodes, I couldn't wait. Yeah. Open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AoA, check me out. Look, plugged in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it, my wife.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AoA show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with my boy Isaiah.
Yo, what up?
And today we're here to talk about Noblesse episode 6. We just got off the heels of our live reaction, so you definitely want to go check that out if you haven't already. But we're here now to take a deeper dive and, kind of expound upon some of our thoughts that we had during this episode. So if you guys like the content today, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, sharing with your friends, and commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of our discussion today? What did you think of this episode in particular? And what are your thoughts on Noblesse as a series so far? You could also refer to our description where we have all sorts of links that lead to ways which you could support the show, such as merch, our Twitch line, our social media, our Spotify account, you name it. It's all there. Definitely go check that out if you want to support the show. But anyway, hopping right into this discussion here, there are essentially two big things, I guess, that happened, right? The episode is kind of split in half. It's the fight, or lack thereof, in the first half, and then we have the whole moving in scene, I guess, or, everything that leads up with that. So I, last week, was talking about how I was very curious to see if this was actually going to be a fight, right, with Rai coming in. And Rai's going to exude that sort of confidence no matter what it is. And I had a feeling that it was going to go this route, but I was just curious. I was like, okay, at what point do we get a villain that's strong enough to at least give Rai, make him break a sweat, give him the time of day, right? And it wasn't this day at all. No. But so, the thing is now is that we've now realized, because I'm like, okay, once he just manhandled this dude, I'm like, where do we go from here? You know what I mean? I'm like, how is this going to be a thing? This is literally One Punch Man, just like on a different skin. But it wasn't until later in the episode, which, we'll talk about, that he coughs up the blood, and it's like, there it is. This is going to be the roadblock that they have, which makes me think that there really is no one actually that is going to be on Rai's level in terms of raw power. It's just going to be a matter of the stronger they are, the more Rai has to, put that much little bit more of effort into it, which means the faster his sickness or whatever
2 fingers instead of 1
progresses. Right. So it's like they're not necessarily fighting. It's really just like Rai is like the ultimate level 1000 weapon that you got from your friend because he traded it to you in the game, and it's way above your level, but it's only got like 5 shots in it, right? And you can't use it or spam it the entire time. Like, that's Rai at this point. So he's going to have to, educate or, have these other folks believe in themselves, I guess, as we see with M21 later in the episode, in order for them to be able to take up the mantle, because I guess it's implied that Rai either is not going to be around forever, or if he is, he's not going to be able to just solve all the problems, essentially. So, I don't know. It was interesting stuff. What were your first impressions of the show? Any takeaways? I
really like this episode, actually. There's a lot of, sort of like you said, once we, the Rai fight, was just awesome. It's, there's something to be said for like the anime protagonist who sort of is, too strong or, super OP, kind of rolls up and just takes care of everything. But man, if it's not fun to watch, like there's just, this scene. And of course, because they have the commander, who, by the way, Rip, not just because he gets his ass whooped, because everybody who's not Rai and Frankie gets their ass whooped here. But like, this man rolled up into this thing, this job, this mission with his whole squad of seemingly hardened killers and criminals, and literally 2/3 of them were like, nope, fuck, I'm out of this, and turn their backs on him, and he's just like, fuck, man, so I'm just like, this dude this isn't his show. It's not, this is, he's supposed to be villain number 2, and that's it. He's not supposed to have, any sort of cathartic moments. But I did love this fight. I loved the fight between him and Rai. Again, I guess Jenner is calling it a fight. And then even with Frankie and the dude with the purple hair, whose name is just not in my head.
Takada. I don't know. Now that I made that up completely.
Takada.
Go on.
Taco. So the fight between him and Frankie was really cool too, because it again, not anywhere on Rai's level, at least I think, but it's very clear that once Rai becomes too, I guess, exhausted or falls ill or whatever, once he's taken out of the equation, Frankie is going to be he's going to be the next like head honcho here, and not like in terms of like he'll be the but he is by far the strongest person other than Rye in this entire squad. And just watching him like, go from like mild gentle mannered servant for Rye to like snap into like this basically like crazed, like killing mode just at the mention that guy was going to do something to Rye was like, oh. It was like it was cool. I really enjoyed the fight. I really enjoyed and also the way that these last 2 episodes build up. That's kind of the way that this show, at least right now, is handling like its combat side, right? Where it's like humans or weaker supernatural people, modified humans, will roll up on the enemies here, and we'll kind of just do this back and forth where people are getting slapped around, and like maybe the good guys start winning a little bit, then the bad guys start winning a little bit, and then the bad guys start like really winning, and then like Ryan and Frankie show up, but again, what you were saying, where it's like we do learn that in this episode that there is an obstacle for Rye essentially coming in and being the powerhouse in any scenario, and that he won't indefinitely be able to just do this. So it is nice having that in the back of our minds, and it is nice knowing that like, okay, one of our shared complaints in the last episode was the fact of like, okay, how much screen time or relevancy are these side characters that aren't Rye or Frankie going to get, and are they going to have an opportunity, to really like show off their stuff or be of any significant use to, the main goal or mission here. Which, if this plays out the way I think it will, they will, because they'll quite literally be forced into it by means of Rye being incapacitated or, out of commission or whatever it is. But yeah, I really liked it. I liked the way that like this sort of wrapped up the fighting thing. I like the idea that like we're just building a bachelor pad of supernatural, bad boys of anime now. And yeah, I'm definitely curious to see where this goes, because it is still like, at least for me, it is still like, okay, we got this done and that was cool, but like how we get from like where we like, what is the like, so they're recruiting people to live in the house, and like everybody's gonna, I guess, start training or stuff. Although I'm actually curious of like if it's gonna be a thing of like they all have to train and hone their skills, because we saw that like Rye could basically just unlock their final form or whatever if he wanted to. So I wonder if it's gonna be a thing of like maybe in Rye trying to help all of them, like that's what sort of expedites like him getting sicker and stuff. Yeah. Or if it'll just be from him, naturally barging in and saving like the human kids or whatever. But I did like this episode.
Yeah, it was definitely better. I am I guess if I have to offer one word of, pessimistic intention here, I am curious where we go from here in terms of like what the next enemy is, and how everything comes together, because I will say that even though I did enjoy this episode and the fight was cool and we got everyone, like I'm not denying that a couple episodes leading up to that, I was like, I had my fair share of complaints. Like, I'm like, okay. Oh, by the way, Takeo, Takeo, is the purple hair guy. But like how Takeo and Tao like are just so flippant, you know what I mean, with everything, like with their character development. And like, there are definitely some things where I'm just like, okay, where do we go from here? And how many episodes are we going to need for a lead up until we get to X fight? And like, is it going to be Rye again, or are these people going to be able to? I think from here, it's going to be way less of Rye, like right off the rip. I don't think Rye's going to come into the next enemy again and just like shit stomp him with 2 fingers and just, obliterate him. Because I feel like now if they've already set up that precedent and they have so many people in their squad that it's like, dude, if you guys are helpless at this point. But there is something to be said that I feel like in this show sometimes it's like, it doesn't, like, I feel like it doesn't matter how many people you have at like level 5. If you have one dude at level 7, like that one dude at level 7 shit stomps everyone at level 5. It's not like, at least so far from what we've seen, right? Like Kranz or Rye or whatever, like the power level is so compounding, up at the top, that it makes it hard for anyone who's not literally on that level to do anything about it without getting slapped around. So I'm curious to see, it's usually like they'll fight the lower guys, right? So it's like we had the female with the scythe, her name evades me, fighting Hammer, you know, and like stuff like that, where it's like she mollywopped him, but then if she went against Kranz, my guess is that she wouldn't have fared quite as well, etc. So I'm curious to see where they go from here. You know, I guess time will tell, but yeah, I guess from there we get into the whole, you know, we kind of briefly mentioned it, but the whole bachelor pad situation going on. Oh no, you know what? I had one more thought here, and maybe you could clarify if I'm just it's something I missed, or anyone in the comments or whatever. Frankie is not a noblesse. Am I wrong in that? Right? So what is Frankie? Is my question.
So I don't like know if it's like if he is something specific other than like the strongest supernatural like person, and that's what makes him or gives him the right, I guess, to be the noblesse's servant, or if he is something, you know, if he is in some position that's special or higher above than most supernatural or modified humans. Yeah. But I do believe that he is. That there is something to it, you know, that he's not like, I just don't know what it is, but I know the noblesse is like, that's something that's only one, like, that's just Rye.
Yeah,
Rye is the only noblesse.
Like nobles, like there are nobles.
There are nobles, but the title of noblesse is something specific to Rye. But yeah, he might be a noble, and maybe there's a position amongst the nobles again that like grants him that much power, or he worked up to that much power, and that's why he has a bit. I don't know.
You know what? It just threw me off though is that his character design and his appearance are not reminiscent of the nobles that we've seen so far. Whether it be Rye himself, the brother and sister, or in the OP we get alluded to the next potential villain sitting on the throne. I don't know if it's a guy or girl, but with the long hair. They all share the red eyes, the somewhat pale look. They look like vampires, right? But Frankie himself, even in flashbacks from what we saw in this episode where he gets power limited, doesn't share that aesthetic very much.
That's what I think. I think it's like it must be, I think, even if it's so my running theories is that he is part of a different like family in like the noble circle, and that his family, it's kind of like the only way I could think of right now is Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is a video game that, you know, if you've played, you'll understand what I'm saying, but I'll explain it to you. Basically, there's two characters in one of the three houses that you can interact with. One of them, her name is Edelgard, and she is my waifu, but more importantly, she's the queen of the empire, which is like the land that she comes from. And then the secondary character, her like assistant, basically, is literally like his family are like the noble status, but their whole family lineage is like destined to be the servant of Edelgard's family. So I think it might be a thing there where it's like Frankie's family or bloodline or whatever lineage is of nobility, but their family lineage specifically is designated to serve whoever the noblesse is.
Okay, interesting.
Which is my first theory. Or B, it's just, again, the fact that he like ended up there because of his prowess, or because of like some event that happened, and they're like, okay, you now will be the servant to the noblesse, or whatever. But that's just a guess.
Yeah, interesting. If it's something that has been revealed to us already, I'm curious if anyone, you know, I missed it. So if you could clarify that in the comments. But if it's something that is part of the mystery in the story, then, you know, you don't have to say anything, obviously. But yeah, just a random thought that popped in my head now, especially solidified it when we saw the flashback and he still didn't look any different. That's when I was like, oh, okay, like this guy's been kicking it for a while. But anyway, point being, we move on. So we move on to the bachelor pad that we have now. We get Takeo and Tao basically rolling up, eating dinner over the house. If the little boy with the white hair and M21 don't drop it soon, I'm smack both of them, because I was like, all right, this was cute for like the first time that they did it. It's like, they're getting to know each other, but now it's like, yo, shut up. Like, people are trying to eat, and like, I'm kind of tired of it. Like, you guys are making a ruckus every single time we get a table. What are you, 5? What are you guys, 5? We just like slaughtered a superhuman over here, and like we're talking about vampires and whatever the hell is going on. Y'all are arguing like every 2 seconds. No, all jokes aside though, you know, so we get their dinner scene, which was nice, and then you know, then Tao and Takeo realize that basically that the Union can tamper with people's memories, which is just a neat little trick to be able to do, because you can now, which kind of sheds some more light on Takeo and his backstory, because his whole motivation for fighting is his sister, right? He justifies everything that he does because he's like, oh, okay, I'm fighting for her, I'm doing this. So, which kind of gives me a little more leeway, because one of my complaints in the prior episodes was like, bro, you know what I mean? It's like you knew what this job was signing up, and like you came in and like it made sense right from the rip that it's like, okay, I'm going to do this for my sister, like whatever the case might be. But you know, the fact that he had these like doubts and was kind of like a different person, now that we realize that his memories were being tampered with, it's like, okay, I guess you get a little more of a pass. Like, I mean, you still did some pretty heinous stuff, and you just seemed to care, ironically, this time, which you're pretty lucky about because you ran into people that slapped you around. But yeah, I don't know. So that was interesting. And then, you know, we have Tao, who could just basically hack into everything that there ever was on planet Earth, which is a very useful skill to have. So I was like, they better not leave, because that's really useful to have that guy on
That's
your
our
squad.
guy in the chair.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? So yeah, but they but M21 is really, you know, is the one who hears their conversation and feels for them, right? In this moment, and basically he's like, you know, Frankenstein, listen, I know it's not my place to ask, but here we are. Frankenstein's like, dog, you didn't even have to ask. And it's
I
like,
already got their beds made.
yeah.
Nigga.
I already got an addition being built on the house. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that scene, that, you know, that second half of the episode, really, and everything that happens with it. But
Yeah, so I really like that part too. I think it's, again, Noblesse does this weird thing where it's like, we'll do the fighting and whatever, but like the character interaction side is just as great. I do like the idea that, like, at least for me, so I was sort of in the same boat as you, where I'm like, oh wow, it's like real convenient that y'all niggas just switch sides real quick, like after you got slapped around just a little too hard. Because it's like, you know, it's like, oh well, you know, they were being coerced, and it's like their hearts weren't really in it from the beginning. But it's like, I don't know, it's like 1 second that like was literally ready to die, like literally ready to give his life for this cause, and then the second that Frankie's like, I'm gonna kill you, he's like, oh, well now hold on, wait a minute, wait, I didn't mean like dog, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, okay, what? And then like with, even when they were in the with Rai in the confrontation in like the basement or whatever, where not Takeo, the
Tao
is like, you know, he says, he's like, no, don't worry, this is my fate, like I'm supposed to get consumed by him. And then the kids are like, but like, why though? And he's like, yeah, you're right. And starts like choking the dude with the thing, and shoots like you know, a couple jolts of lightning into him. And I'm like, okay, I guess
all it took?
if that was the plan, like, I don't know. It just seemed very like, no, we got to follow these beats and these beats. And then now we're on this track, and it's like, it didn't feel as, I guess, like natural and organic as I think they were like they wanted to, or that it's supposed to. And granted, I'm gonna chalk most of this up to the typical, like, we got to rush the webtoon formula here. So maybe there's like more of it in the webtoon and in the original story, and they just kind of had to chop, you know, we know how this goes. So, you know, whatever, unfortunate, you know, consequence of that. But it's like, it just ends up making those moments feel like they're like, we have these bad guys. Nope, just kidding. Now they're good guys, and he's the real bad guy. So whatever. But then when they get back to the, you know, the house or the mansion or whatever it is, yeah, I do like all the interactions. It is a little bit like, of like, you know, M21 and this like, I don't like you. We almost had a near-death experience, but I still don't like you. And it's like, all right, nigga, get over it. But I do, and so we have that moment, and followed by, again, like you were saying, with M21 sort of vouching for Takeo and Tao to stay here, where it's like, it's weird. I mean, like, okay, granted, like M21 is probably just being a really nice guy, but it's like, Frankie and Rai clearly have literally zero problem with just getting a whole literal bachelor pad of boys just up in here, and it's like just doing their thing. Like, so it's like, it was, I don't know if, like, okay, so M21 is clearly like going through, you know, his current, I guess, like character arc, right? Where he's like, all right, how do I, you know, he wants to get stronger, and he wants to like be able to protect people, and he's sort of found this new reinvigorated purpose for fighting and stuff. But I wonder if it's like everybody else in the house here is going to going to sort of adopt the same thing, where they're like, oh, I'm going to get stronger, and like I'm going to do whatever I can to learn to fight for, you know, Frankie or Rai or their kids or whoever, or if it's going to be like or if it's just going to be like a common enemy thing, where it's like everybody here is here in the house working together and doing whatever, but like most of the people have kind of like their own agenda or their own like goal to go after. It's just that like this is like home base. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm curious because I kind of feel like it. I don't know. Maybe it's fine now, but I feel like it's just gonna get a little tiresome if it's like we get again like I don't know 2 episodes later, right? And it's just like we're doing the same thing. We're finding somebody, we recruit them, and then it's like oh, now I'm gonna fight for your guys' cause, and it's like well, why? I just want some of these other characters to have like a different sense of agency that's not like immediately tied to the fact that because these guys rescued them, basically they're now indebted to them.
Yeah.
And like not that like they don't even make them feel like that. You know what I mean? Like Frankie and Ryan don't hold that shit over their head or whatever. But it's just like again, we go from like wherever their characters start to like confrontation with Frankie and Rye to like now we're living with them and we're part of their squad and we're like and it's like I don't know. I want like a shakeup in this formula because I'm starting to see it become a little repetitive. I mean, this is what the 3rd time, give or take, with the kids that we've done this. And I don't know. I'm definitely curious to see, like you were saying at the beginning of this, if like how much of a presence Rye is going to have even going forward into the next episode and onward. Because I'm sure, obviously, he's going to take a backseat. He's either going to take a backseat like by force, as in he's going to keep doing his thing, but then just get so sick or whatever that he has to step back, or he might like take precaution ahead of time and be like, all right, like I'm, whatever. But I am definitely curious to see where the relationships go here because they seem good for now, but like I don't know, it just kind of I don't know. There's something in my mind where I'm like these relationships established just seem very like flimsy. They seem very like circumstantial because it's like, all right, we had this encounter or near-death experience, or we had this moment together. And it's like that's how we bonded, like talking about Takeo and Tao, like with M21 or whatever, let's say. But like, what happens with all of that going forward? Like, is it just going to be like M21's doing his own thing with maybe Frankie or Rye, and then like they're doing their own thing, or is it like that? Like, I don't know. We brought this up last episode. I guess the ongoing concern, if you can call it that, in my mind, I'm not like really concerned, but just something I'm thinking about is that like I don't want this to get into a situation of like too many cooks in the kitchen and there's so many characters and so many relationships that like it's impossible to juggle all of them, like because I'm such it's especially with something like the anime which already has to be rushed. I'd be so much better off in my head if it's like just keep it as small of a cast as possible and like work on every character, you know what I mean, instead of like there's 50 people here, but like we're only going to see 5.
Yeah. No, I could definitely get behind that. So the last thing I guess that we should talk about here is the conversation that that Rye has with M21 at the end of the episode, where you had briefly mentioned it. M21 is not feeling himself at the moment. He says, I'm not strong enough. I need to get stronger, etc. But like, how far can I realistically go, right? Because in this world of unfairness, some people just are gifted and some people get injected with more steroids, and like that's just how that goes. I was one of the test subjects. I was one of the betas in the beginning, like the testing. So he's not feeling himself, and Rye comes in and he's like, actually though, you're much stronger than you think. Not strong enough like at all to even blink at me, but you're strong. So he puts him in that form for a second, and M21 even seems to be a little afraid of himself in that moment, for better or for worse. And he's like, oh, what the hell was that? He's like, that's your true form. So I think that's interesting because we saw, like, generally speaking, the more advanced experiments are ones that are able to have like a second form. And it was really never established that M21, M24, etc. were to have that. So I don't know if this is like a thing where M21 has this like interesting latent ability where he's able to unlock that the harder he trains, or if it's like, no, he was injected with that kind of stuff from the start, or like maybe it was that, they were going through testing and it was successful, but they didn't realize it. Like, I'm curious to know why he's able to do that. And if it's something where it's like he caps at that point, or he could grow even more, or like just getting more of the background, on his experiments and like why they differ so much. I mean, it's pretty easy to put 2 and 2 together. It's just time goes on and you build on what and you get better test subjects that come out. So fair enough. But yeah, I'm just curious to see where his growth goes, and even in that form, like how strong we're actually talking. But yeah, I don't know if you had any thoughts.
Yeah, so I definitely am curious as well. I don't know if it's going to be a thing of, like I said earlier, like if there's an argument to be made where Rye could just sort of like, experience boost everybody and like just sort of hit them with the blood thing, and then like they all get their forms anyway. Or maybe if it's like a scenario where they end up in like a dire crisis and it's like, all right, I have to do this to get you this form, whatever. Or if there is supposed to be a, like you said, like the slow training progression thing where it's like, no, like showing them the end goal, right, or the end result, but it's like you have to work to get there. Like I'm not going to give it to you, but you need to know that like that's where you can be. That's where the ceiling is for your potential. But you're gonna have to earn it. So it's definitely interesting. I wonder because I don't know if it's a thing of, or at least if it is, that like hasn't been established, or maybe I just didn't pick up on it, where that's the case with them, where if it's like they have to train like or like fight and get into X amount of fights or something to get these powers, or if it's like sort of dire situation unlocks the ability and then it's just there. You know what I mean? So it's like if M21 is pushed enough to the brink, which I guess one could argue that he was in a pretty dire situation in this episode, but that this ability would unlock, or like maybe there are certain standards or stipulations that have to be met for it that like didn't happen this time. I don't know, but I am curious to find out what if M21 like if he's special, like it's like, oh, you actually have this ability that like not most people have, or if there's like if everybody that we have in this group here, excluding let's say maybe Frankie himself and Rai, have like a version like this kind of thing where like some super powered or final form version of themselves. I'm definitely curious because we mentioned it again, but not to harp on it too much, but like once Rai is out of the picture, we're going to need everybody in their finalist forms or whatever the fuck to stand up against whoever comes at them, essentially, because Frankie's pretty much going to be the top guy, but, like, Frankie's just one man. You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, folks, those are our thoughts on Noblesse Episode 6. Again, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, sharing with your friends, and commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of our discussion today? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there things that we might have missed that you picked up on, etc.? Let us know all in those comments down below. Make sure you guys are referring to our description for ways to support the show. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the flip. Peace.
Peace.
Ninjas are samurais, blaze of the kunais. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly.